Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show, everyone. The mute button always gets me. How you doing, everyone? Today on the program, we have the one, the only, Mr. Mike Cermak, techguy.org. They are, of course, our go-to place for, anything troubleshooting or help or just, hey, community, which, obviously with COVID, I'm sure a lot of us have, kind of missed that interaction. And if we can't have it face-to-face, then, hey, why not have it on the internet? And as far as I know, actually, I do know very well. They don't charge you money. So there you go. Everyone, so welcome into the program once again, and we hope that you've had a wonderful weekend. We had to play a rerun yesterday. I claimed it was for religious reasons, and the religious reason was that World of Warcraft Burning Crusade came out. So I had to take it off, and yeah, up until about 4 a.m. It was a lot of fun, and I appreciate all of you sticking with me. So there you go. But hey, we're back today, and we're going to have a great show. So everyone, before we get started, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, all the shows, podcasts, show notes, video, archives, links to social media, all that and more. Really anything you want to know about Computer America, hey, our website is the best place to find it. And right there at the top, you can see their tech support, and because obviously being a tech show, a lot of you are looking for that. And yeah, that sends you directly over to techguy.org. Who's again our guest today with the owner-operator, Mr. Mike Cermak, longtime Computer America correspondent. And hey, I think we can just go ahead and bring him on as he is feverishly working. We got this show put together last minute, but it's okay. It's going to go well. And Mike, how you doing?
Hey, the mute button got me there.
There you go. Yeah.
Don't you hate when that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So how you been?
I've been great. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. And let me go ahead and let's see, do all the stuff that normally would have already been done. And hey, so yeah, sorry we missed you last month. It was really crazy, but we're really happy to have you on this month. And so everything going well for you up there? I mean,
knock on wood, everything's been great. We've been very busy. We have all kinds of projects that we're supposed to be last year and got postponed due to COVID, and now everything's just gangbusters. We can't keep up with all the work. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, during your day job, when you're not running the website and the forum, you, of course, install networks and, that kind of thing for businesses and towers. Yeah. I think you have your own tower that that you put up. And obviously, I think that, that's a trend that we've been seeing in a number of areas where, businesses have become very good at staying dormant. And then now with, vaccines going out, rates of infection going down, things starting to reopen, it's coming back faster than I think anyone could have expected, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it was scary times a year ago. We weren't sure, if we were still going to have a job, it's right. One of those. So it is great.
Well, I'm glad.
There's a crazy job we did recently. I don't know if I can easily share it with you somehow. I'll have to see if I can email you a link or something.
Sure.
But we just rewired a network for a for a office, and it was a lot of fun. You might enjoy seeing it.
So when you say rewire, obviously, an office, if it was built in the last, 30 years, would have some kind of cabling in it. Please don't tell me it was Cat 5e that you replaced.
Yeah, so it's Cat 5e. We didn't replace it. All we did in it was redo the server cabinet. This place has 2 different buildings, 2 different server cabinets, fiber between them. And this particular one, the server cabinet, literally, we couldn't close the doors of it because of the cable, the amount of patch cable that was sticking out of it. And it was painful. And I love taking before and after pictures here. I'm going to throw this in. Can I throw it in the chat? Is that all right? Should I email it?
Yeah. Go for it.
There you go. There's a link to it. But
sure.
There's a before and after picture down there if you want to take a look at that. But that's how I spent several days here. This for last week. And they just had so much patch cable in it. Oh, do you have to log in to see the picture? Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you hate that website?
We're good. We're good.
You got it.
I have an account, oddly enough. Who knew?
And it's hard to tell, but there's actually a network switch in there.
Really?
And there's actually a bank of phone connections in there as well.
And just a bunch of splitters hanging all over the place. I'm sure that a lot of offices...
Look at the amount of Cat 5. Like, we had to, pull it. I mean, that's one of my guys there, just pulling out that Cat 5, trying to figure out where everything goes. And there's our after picture where everything's actually labeled and organized, and 2 new Unify switches in it, and PoE, and then we went back there, a couple of days later. They needed another port somewhere else on for something else. And we're like, okay, all of them are labeled. Let's go over here and turn B35 onto this switch. That was easy. We didn't have to worry about trying to peek through the forest of wires and hope that we didn't breathe on anything. And it was bad.
Now, and obviously a home is nowhere near as complex as that, but I gotta say, just tradesmen in general, I've learned one thing going through a big home renovation, is that every tradesman or every profession that had some kind of trade in it, they'll all come up and they'll go, who was the last person to work on this? They're awful and they should be fired. They don't know what they're doing. All this needs to be fixed. And regardless of, how many electricians, plumbers, tile guys, and regardless of who we brought in and how many of them and how qualified every one of them were, everyone said the last guy didn't know what he was doing. And I feel like you can you can empathize with that a little bit.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And what's probably the case here, and probably the case in many of the things you're talking about, is someone went in and did this and probably did a nice job of it at one point. And then someone came in and added to it, and then added to it, and then had to fix the thing real quick. And then we'll come back and clean it up later. And it works for now. Let's just, try and push that door shut.
And that's what you get this. Yeah.
And that's how you end up with that. And then, so then we rewire it and make everything nice and clean and labeled and all that. But, 10 years from now, it's going to be a giant mess again.
Here's the question, though. And you mentioned this, which you can clearly see in the picture here if you're watching the video portion. But you said they could not close the door.
Right.
In this picture, can you close the door? Because some of these look like they're kind of bumped out a little bit.
Yep, you sure can. That door kind of comes out a little bit from what it looks like. You can kind of see the top and bottom of that frame, how it kind of has a lip on it. But
as long as you can
although
close
you're
it.
right, if I were to do it again, whoever first built that
case,
that rack there probably should have brought it back another inch just to have a little bit more wiggle room for patch cables. But it does close now.
Do you think in 10 years, and this is, then we'll start getting into stories and things like that, but, again, good job on this job to you and your guys, but do you think in 10 years, would you even be doing this? Or do you think, obviously wireless is going to be so good at that point? I would hope in 10 years, it's come a long way in 10 years. Do you think in 10 years, you'd have to still do jobs like this?
I think so. That's a good question. I think so. Wireless has come a long way, and Wi-Fi 6 is pretty awesome. And in 10 years, Wi-Fi 10 will be great. But I mean, there's something about a hardwired connection that I think is always going to be better than a wireless connection. With wireless devices, you have to still worry about getting power to them. Whereas and the other thing is some of these wires feed wireless access points, and they feed voice over IP phones, and they feed an overhead paging system, and they feed Xerox printers and and they feed any number of other things. And what's nice with a lot of those devices is that they're getting PoE, power over Ethernet to those devices. So the access points and the phones and some of the other devices that are connected.
So even wireless is always going to need a system like that behind it.
Well, even wireless is always going to need wired, right? That's kind of the running joke is you still need electricity. Like, yeah, okay, there are some cameras. Oh, that's the other thing is there's IP cameras that are on this too. And yeah, there's battery operated IP cameras, and they all stink. I mean, I haven't, especially for commercial. Like, yeah, at home if you want to throw a couple up and have to deal with the batteries and the unreliability and whatever, fine. But not at a big commercial location. You're not dealing with battery operated stuff, and I don't think we will for a long time.
Right.
I think you're still going to have some variation of this, and I think at commercial locations is where you're still going to have desktop computers for a while yet too. I mean, at home, other than nerds like you and I, most people have laptops or just iPads, and at home you can get away with just Wi-Fi. At bigger businesses, I think you're still going to have this. Now, at smaller businesses, where you only have 2 or 3 computers today, maybe in 10 years, it's all just running on wireless iPads. I can see that. Yeah.
It's obviously going to replace some of the easier stuff, but you're saying the more complicated things will always, maybe in 10 years you can get a wireless system to do what a wired system can do, but you think that wired is always just going to have those innate benefits to it. Until we see a change in the technology, which haven't seen anything yet. So there you go. And actually, that does kind of segue us kind of nicely into our first story. Let's see, I can find right about, I think it was this one. And it's from CityAM, a publication I don't really read all too much. And I'll go ahead and shoot you a link as well. But this is talking about, back to work, and how many people are, having to work from home and telecommute and that kind of thing. And this article mainly focuses on the technology side of the equation, where tech workers who are, people who code, people who, maintain software, people who really don't have to be in a bullpen. They don't have to go to the office. They can do everything remotely. They can go to meetings remotely. A lot of people are saying that, COVID has kind of opened their eyes, and, companies that before said, we can't let you telecommute, you have to come into the office, suddenly they had to let people telecommute, and they found it was possible. And Mike, it seems like workers, at least tech workers by and large, which, not to generalize, but, I'm sure they don't like leaving their homes in their pajamas, kind of any more than the rest of us. And if they can work in them, all the better. By and large, 86%, according to this study, of 1,700 tech professionals, which was surveyed, and 86% don't want to go back to the office. They would say they would rather find another job than to go back in every day.
Yeah, I believe that. And I think that's a pretty widespread, probably in a lot of professional settings, not just in tech. I think you're right. And I think that a lot of businesses are seeing the upside of it as well, in terms of, before, businesses didn't trust employees that they would actually do work from home, right? And there was all the difficulties of, if we let them do it, then we got to let these other people do it. And a lot of businesses just didn't want to go down that road. And then, as you said, they had to. They didn't have a choice. And now they're seeing not only did it work, but it's saving them a lot of money. Maybe we don't need quite as much office space and square footage and HVAC and utilities and cleaning crews and all of that. So I think we'll be seeing that more and more accepted over time. We have a doctor's office who started doing virtual remote appointments, and it was an older fellow who I thought would never get into e-medicine whatsoever, but had to. Or over the last year, you had to, especially in his specialty. It wasn't one where you could do it in person really for a period of time.
Right.
And they're going to continue to do it. Now that they've been forced to do it, they see it works fine. They've got the routine down, and they're going to continue to do it. And I think that's great for them and for their patients. And I suspect there's a lot of other examples of that same kind of thing happening, whether it's deliveries, whether it's, there's a lot of businesses were very flexible and creative and moved quickly to adapt over the last year. And for the better, and a lot of that's still going to stick with us.
Yeah, and of course for telemedicine, I mean, we saw that pick up in the past couple of months with guests here on the show that, you know, either run back-end systems because not everyone wants to do just a basic Zoom call, and Zoom's not exactly HIPAA compliant, and there are lots of underlying systems that make it really easy. And I always find it fun when talking to, you know, the CEO or product managers of these companies. They're like, you know, doctors, you think they're, you know, some, you know, and they by and large are some of the most intelligent clients you can have. But when it comes to their tech savviness, they are some of the least tech savvy customers that you can have at the same time. So you need to make everything super user friendly, super simple, you know, point click. And then of course for the clients, you know, let's face it, healthcare, a lot of clients are of, you know, of an advanced age. It needs to be simple for them too. So yeah, we've seen a big boom in that. I'm glad that, you know, you're seeing people stick with that. And I got to say that, you know, industries like grocery delivery, food delivery, you know, things like that are, those are definitely here to stay. But, you know, so many people, like, the instant the state, and you know, we're in North Carolina right now, the instant the state said that you're allowed to go out without your mask if you've had, you know, the COVID vaccine, for better or worse, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but the moment that happened, man, the restaurants were flooded. Like, as easy as it is to get food delivered to your home, man, everyone was just burning to get out there and just do something.
But on the other hand, and I agree with that, and I have eaten inside at a restaurant in the last week, which is, I know, right, it was very strange. Not only that, Ben, but are you sitting down? We went to a movie over the weekend in a
They still
theater
have those?
with other people.
What year is it?
Very strange. Very strange. I won't say that I was completely comfortable the entire time.
What
but
movie?
We did that.
What movie? What movie?
Quiet Place 2.
What?
Quiet Place 2.
Quiet Place 2. I have not. I have not.
You've not? Have you seen Quiet Place with John Krasinski?
No. I think I did hear about it though.
It's wonderful. It's a great horror film. Highly recommended.
Gotcha.
Both of them. I really enjoyed it. They did a great job. Sequels, you never know, but this one I really enjoyed. You need to put it on your list.
There you go.
And it's the sort of horror movie that you want to see on a big screen. It was supposed to come out, you know, pre-pandemic, but they held it for the last year and just it came out. So anyhow, but so I've done all those. The point of my statement though is, but we're still getting groceries delivered because we've got 3 kids, including a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And it sure is swell having those groceries show up at the doorstep and not having to drag 3 kids through, you know, a Walmart or a whatever, or,
for sure,
you know, supermarket of whatever kind. So that's one of these things that are definitely going to stick around for us. Whereas we never had groceries delivered before. I don't know if you even could around here before, but you know, that's something we're going to continue to do. And I suspect there's a lot of examples of things like that that are nationwide.
Yep. So a lot of, you know, obviously a lot of bad came out of COVID, but I think as far as adoption of technology, man, there's a lot of sectors that really have benefited, and that doesn't even include, you know, you mentioned your kids, you know, the youngest 3 and 4, they're not exactly going to school yet. I don't know if you can zoom into preschool or not, but hey, you know, that might have been an option. School and education, I'm sure, is another sector where, you know, I actually did take online classes, you know, kind of back in like, you know, the late 2000s, and it wasn't great. I mean, it was, you know, essentially just some pre-recorded text and someone making a video and it plays it back to you. Zero engagement, zero whatever. It's like, you know, did you listen to this? Did you read this? Check, you know, you pass. I'm sure that, you know, education, as far as, you know, being able to do it through, you know, Zoom or anything else, I'm sure that's gotten a lot better. But it's not, you know, like you said, it's not going to be the dominant. Kids will still go back to school, but at least I feel like the option is going to be there for more students. So,
yeah, and that's good for everyone. I mean, that,
Yep. So, reach more people. Yep. And just real quick to wrap up this article, so a lot of tech professionals say that they don't want to go back to the office. They also mentioned that 80% of tech professionals don't think they'll be working for the same company in 2 years, but that speaks, I think, more to a trend in tech, which, you know, Mike, I'm sure you and your employees have a much better, you know, kind of rapport with each other because, you know, being on the small, medium business side. But when it comes to large, you know, Amazon has 1 million employees. Google has like 250,000 or something like that, employees and contractors. tech workers don't stick with the same company because they know that's how they get their raises. They get some experience, they get some more certificates, and they jump ship after 3 years for a nice pay raise and a better job title. It seems like that's going to be sticking around as well. So
yeah, and I don't think that's specific to the tech sector either. I mean, it was only a generation ago where people would go to work for a big corporation and stay there for their entire life until they got their watch. And that's just not a thing anymore. I mean, it's just not a thing anymore. And I don't know that that's necessarily for the I don't know if that's all a good thing or not, but you're right. That's how you get your raises. It's just
I'm always a fan of companies that really reinvest in their employees and, further their education or help them out in, kind of ways that aren't just, exactly. And it's, just doesn't happen. So anyway, so there's that first story again, just it was a nice little segue there, but I'm looking at some others. I'm sure that you have found some as well, but let's talk about some rumors real quick. Microsoft to reveal its next generation of Windows on June 24th. Mike, do you remember Microsoft saying essentially that, they weren't going to come out with any more?
Windows 10 is the last version.
Yep. And I called it way back when I said, that might be true from a technical standpoint, and it probably is. But from a marketing standpoint, that sounds boring,
Well, and it's probably more one than the other, actually. I think that from a technical standpoint, surely it's going to continue to change, right? The background, like Windows 10 that we're going to see 10 years from now is going to be technically in the background, the code very different than the Windows 10 we got, 5 years ago.
Oh, for sure.
But from a marketing, sure, you want to call it Windows 10, sure. But does it have anything to do with the original Windows 10? I don't know. That's lame.
Yep, and and I think Microsoft confirmed last month that Windows 10X, which was the OS for dual screen devices, is no longer going to be built, which is great because Windows, what was it, 8.1 S or X? It was like the mobile version of Windows 8.1. That was a flop. I don't know why these companies keep trying to port their full blown desktop operating system to mobile devices. It never seems to work well, or at least not well enough. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. So anyways, June 24th, we'll definitely know then. They promised a new app store for Windows, and I think that's going to be the biggest announcement they have there. Mike, I'm sure that, and you're kind of shrugging, that new app store, from what we've heard, I think Microsoft's trying to take a page from Apple, where they have one place that you can go to, download any app you want, blah, blah, blah. Because Windows is still very reminiscent of the early days of computers, where you go to any website, download any file. If it's a .exe, you can run it and install it.
Right.
That's kind of risky compared to what Apple and other closed ecosystems do. Do you think a change like this, especially for the operating system that has a 90% market share, to have its own app store, do you think that's going to change anything?
It already has an app store, right?
But they're promising it'll actually be useful this time.
Oh, well, then that's entirely different. So it's critical that they have it if they want to compete. For the average desktop person, the average computer user of any device, average, whatever technology user, doesn't want to have to think about, is this a safe place to download things? They don't want to have to worry about all of that. They want a curated place where they can go in and buy or download these items. Microsoft surely wants it, because then anything brought through their store, they're going to get a cut out of it. Mm-hmm. And if they actually run it like Apple does, and does code checks, make sure that it's secure before it goes through, that's going to be great. I think that it's something that should be widely accepted, and that there's a lot of benefits to everyone. There's benefits to the consumer, there's benefits to Microsoft, there's benefits to the software developers, as far as having a location other than Microsoft taking a cut out of it, which isn't so much a benefit. But right. I think the average, I don't know, we're not the average users, right? You and I are still going to go out there and be downloading stuff from the dark web and just seeing what happens. But
yes.
That caused the smoke to come out of the back. That's not good. Let's not run that one again. But the average person doesn't want to experiment. They don't want that bleeding edge stuff. They want it just to work. Right. So I think that there's the adoption of it is the hardest thing. They've had the App Store, the Microsoft App Store, in there for how long now? No one uses it. No one uses it. And I'd love to see numbers on it, but I think it's going to be really hard to push people into it. And I don't know how you do that.
Well, they're hoping that a nice revenue share model, like you mentioned, anything purchased through them, Microsoft gets a cut, but of course the developers would get a better cut out of it.
Yeah. How are you going to get the developers into it? I mean, you could look at systems like Steam, which is effectively an app store, right?
Yes.
And and a widely used one. Everyone has used Steam. Even people who are not computer users have used Steam because that's where they get the games. You need to drag in some developers, force people to use this platform, and make some sweetheart deals with them where Microsoft isn't getting a cut, or maybe is even paying. Say, all right, Adobe would never do it, but Adobe or whoever, some big companies that people are actually going to go out there and look for these apps. From now on, to get this app, you have to do it through the App Store, like kicking and screaming, bring the consumers into it. And half the consumers are going to say, "Oh, I didn't know there was a Windows App Store." Like, no, look at that. Like.
Yeah, and obviously you can go to the Microsoft Store, which I'm actually pulling up for the first time here. Hopefully it doesn't have any information. And looks like, obviously a lot of video games and TV shows and stuff like that. And obviously the different apps that you can download directly onto your computer. I'll be honest, like looking at a lot of the apps, and I'm just now realizing this, the browser has kind of replaced my need to actually download anything on my computer. I mean, stream this, cast this, stream this. There's not really, don't you dare. There's not really a lot that I really download. And like you said, I use, insert game, game store here for everything else. It would be nice, like let's say for my parents, if I wanted to, if I wanted them to download something, it'd be nice to be able to just send them a link that if they click on it, it would pop up in the Windows Store and they just have to hit install app. That would be nice.
And it'd be nice if you had some sense that the items that are in the Windows Store are of a higher quality than the random stuff you just find on Google. And I don't know that that's the case. I think that they are so desperate to have things in the store, in the Microsoft Store, that I don't get the impression that they're very particular about what apps they let in there.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. And that's different than the Apple App Store, we've gone through. I have an app that I developed for a customer and went through different processes to be able to get that into the store. And then we did an update for it, and Apple comes back and says, "Well, yeah, but for best user experience, we want you to change this and this and this." I'm like, "But that had nothing to do with what this update is for." Like, we just want it to be. We're not going to accept this, until you change these things that we think would make it better. And they were right. Those things do make it better for the user experience. They're more work for me.
Yeah.
But that's the way Apple is. And I'm an Android guy. I mean, I'm not even an Apple guy, and I'm giving them this praise.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a tough thing to do. I hope they're successful in it.
I think that there's definitely a reason for it. I mean, computers have moved to the point where an app store would definitely be necessary. I'm surprised. Well, and I can't say I'm surprised Microsoft doesn't have this already. They do have it already. It's just really unnecessary, I guess.
How many programs have you installed through the Microsoft Store?
I told you that was my first time opening it right there live on the air.
I didn't know if that was the first time on that computer or the first time.
No, ever. I whenever I need something, I literally just go to, I download my browser through the Edge browser, although I'm back on the Edge browser, so I'll give Microsoft credit for that. But then anything I need to download, I go to their website and download it from their website. But again, thinking of how, people get software nowadays, that is outdated. There should be some kind of vetting process, and not just random links that you click on until hopefully you get the right thing. Yep. So, anyways, I really do think.
I'm surprised it hasn't been more successful. There seems like such a need and such a benefit to the consumer to have that, and I don't know why it hasn't caught on. I'm not sure what the.
Because there is that there is that alternative that people have been doing for the past 30 years, which is going going to the website and downloading it directly from the website. Microsoft and I think there would be riots in the streets if Microsoft said you have to use the App Store to download this. But hey, that's what Apple does.
Well, and that's what they effectively did on Windows 10. What was the S? Right? Windows 10 S. You could only download stuff through the apps through the Microsoft Store.
Yes, the Windows 10s, but that was like a mini version of the operating system. Once again, that was more of a mobile operating system. So,
but they backed down on that as well, right? If you get a Windows 10s computer, you push a couple buttons, you upgrade to the real version of Windows, and you don't have to worry about that. And that's what I think most people do, who aren't just using it to browse the web.
Right. So I think that's the main thing going to be to watch on June 24th. They're also saying some UI updates.
New icons. That's the big update, right? New icons, slightly prettier.
New icons. Yep. They're
the monitor icon is no longer a CRT.
Yeah. And let's see. I think there was the end of the Windows 95 era icons, which I can pull this up there if you're watching the video portion.
And there is a difference. I do enjoy the new ones better. Obviously, the new ones are on the left, the old ones are on the right. And I'm joking about the CRT on the right-hand column there, second one down. There. The sleep mode one was still
with the screensaver, the little moon. Yeah, with a screensaver.
Yeah, man.
Also, right. I think that screensavers are pretty old too, right?
When was the last time you used a screensaver?
I actually had, I was about to say I had a pretty cool one that was like a live view from the International Space Station, but I've actually made that my desktop background now. So there you go.
What was the really famous screensaver package that everyone used back in the day? It had
toasters with wings. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what was that? What was the name of that?
I think that came natively with Windows.
No, it was a third-party program you bought.
Windows 95 wallpaper pack. What was that?
Oh, well, maybe Windows 95 did like a tip of the hat to them, but it used to be like I think it was Windows 3.1. There was a third-party program you would buy that had screensavers on it, and the Flying Toasters was one of it.
Oh, I unfortunately my computer history begins with 95.
After Dark. After Dark is what it was called.
After Dark wallpaper or screensaver. I'm sorry,
Here, I just sent you a link. Look at the wiki.
Yep. Yep. Actually, I got that right here. So
at Berkeley Systems in 1989 for Apple, in 1991 for Microsoft Windows.
Toasters 91. With wings.
That might have been a little before your time.
I actually remember this exact CD. So it seems like did people just like leave the computer store with their first computer with this also in hand? Like, is this
Of course, you had to buy After Dark. You had to get these awesome screensavers. Of course. The most famous screensaver was the iconic Flying Toasters.
Yep. The Bad Dog, which would make like little holes in your background and stuff like that, and carry away your icons. So many
good ones.
Yeah, there was Flying Toasters Pro. There was one that was like flying toilets instead of toasters.
There was one where someone would like steam up the screen and would like write with their finger on the screen. You remember that?
Yep. Yeah. So obviously, that's the computer that we remember, but I think Microsoft wants us to remember the computer that 2021 gave us. So they're updating a lot. And, hey, let's face it, Windows 10 came out in like 2016, I think. When did Windows 10 come out? Windows 10 release date was 2015, July 29, 2015, so a year earlier than that. This thing's already 6 years old, which is which I think is like half of a life cycle of an entire operating system. So it's good that that's the entire life support of one. Like a whole cycle would be like 4 years or something. Anywho, Windows 10 update, look for it. So with that being said, Mike, I think we're going to do one more, and then we can touch on one of the stories that you had if you have one handy. But let's talk about this. And there was actually a funny story, Mike. You might have heard about this. There was an issue with the gas pipeline across the whole U.S. The whole East Coast ran out of gas, or at least people went out and bought. You're
not supposed to fill bags of trash bags with gasoline.
I saw that the clear ones with that one lady was doing. Yeah, that was
what
wild.
What type of garbage bag are you supposed to use for gasoline?
Contractor
electric car, so I don't remember how all that works.
Yes, contractor bags. No, it's and of course they created an even worse gas shortage because they heard there might be a gas shortage. So of course everyone ran out and caused one. Much like the great toilet paper shortage of 2020. And so with that being said, but I do find it fun that you were the first one to come on the show and talk about this, and you called it that was actually from a result of the security flaw found in like Microsoft Exchange or whatever it was. That's how they got into the system, and that's how they, delivered some ransomware to to their network. And I think the worst part about that one, that you mentioned, was that there's really not a good way to fix it, because they're not really updating it, and it was so kind of, so lower level, like so, basic to the whole exchange, that it, a lot of companies use that software. They're vulnerable. So there was that one, and then of course now I'm assuming, I haven't really read through this, because I just found it today, but and like this just happened like what was it, late yesterday, a meat producer came under a similar attack and said it could hamstring their ability to provide beef and meat to everyone. Mike, what's happening with gas being hacked and beef being hacked and schools and like everything's being hacked? Why would you do this? What's happening?
As long as we avoid gas and meat. So if we all start driving electric cars and becoming vegetarians, everything will be fine. That's really
society would crumble overnight.
They're just
it would be chaos.
And I don't think that we know the details of how this hack came to be yet, or whether or not they even paid the ransom to be able to get back up and running. It sounds like from the statements that I had read that they are back up and running and trying to play catch up a little bit. But right. I am sure but just like you said, even if the public senses that there might be a shortage, there will be a shortage, because that's how the public reacts and overreacts. The toilet papers, the gas, whether or not there's a real shordage, if people think there is, then that will create one.
So that's really,
an issue,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, because obviously you set up networks and I'm sure that you take security for your clients pretty, it's on your mind. How do you feel that, traditional companies that weren't before high value targets? Because I'm sure that everyone would love to hack, a medical research company. They would love to hack Google or Amazon. They would love to hack, people who do tons and tons of payment systems and things like that. Now we're getting into, very crucial and big business type networks, but also not very techy. Like if they're like, oh, we are going to release the schematics for all the beef in America. Like it's not something they can really hack, but they can bring down the systems and they can ask for a ransom. How does that make you feel for you and what you do with your clients? Security is important for everyone, right?
There's two different types of attacks that are out there widely. There's targeted and untargeted. And most of my customers are untargeted, and most of the people we talk to who are attacked are untargeted. It's just, you have some sort of vulnerability on your system. You have some computer that wasn't patched. You're still running, Windows 7 on a computer somewhere. Don't do that. And there's a virus that's out there, or a bot that's searching the internet for a computer that's not been patched, and you get hit, and that's it. End of story. Then there's targeted ones. And the sense is that both of these are likely targeted ones, and likely targeted not just because they are critical infrastructure, and perhaps not because they're critical infrastructure. The hackers who did this claim that they don't hit national infrastructures, but because they're big companies. This is the world's largest meat processing company. Like, I don't know what their annual budget for or anything or revenue is, but it's got to be a lot. And so they're looking at big companies like this that they can easily target, or that they should target, and just finding vulnerabilities. And these companies aren't used to being giant, IT targets. It's not like, if you're Google, if you're Microsoft, if you're Apple, you've got a huge cybersecurity budget. You've got the best of the best there. People are trying to hack you every minute of every day.
Right.
If you're, JBS Meats, I'm sure they have great IT people. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the same as the people who are at Google. And it's not the
Right.
same cybersecurity budget as they have at Google. It's not this, and Google's a bad example because I'm sure even though they're the largest meat producer, the revenue of the companies. But if you take a similar IT company who's used to being attacked and a meat producer, if suppose that they're the same size company, it's just anyhow. So they find a vulnerability. They have a list of, all right, here's a bunch of big companies, and let's do a scan and see what we can attack, or it could be the other way around. They could be doing these untargeted scans, just find any Exchange server out here that hasn't been patched yet, give me a list of all the domains, and then see where these domains go. Is this domain, Mike's little 5-person company, let's not waste our time, or is it freaking, JBS? Well, it turns out they're the world's greatest. Yeah, okay, let's go ahead and I've never heard them before, but I just did the Google. I want to get that.
Like a big juicy steak. Yep.
Right, exactly. I suspect that's probably what's happening, but who knows?
It certainly seems to be the case. And then, of course, they keep pointing it back to Russia, saying that this could be the work of Russian hackers. And the last time I actually saw a reporter do a nice little deep dive, into the gas pipeline, and the reason they said it was Russian was that they found the company that produced the software that was kind of pushing the ransomware, and it was. I want to say it was like Israeli. It was like some Israeli-based contracting company that built it, but then they looked under the hood, and turns out they actually contracted and kind of bought the software. And then a lot of the code was edited, and there were comments in Russian, and so they were trying to hide the origins of the software, but it was still Dmitry was still the one writing the comments, I guess. And, they could obviously, point the servers back to Russia. And in fact, they actually pointed back to a building that was actually owned by the Russian military. And they had contractors that, they had military contractors that would actually go to work there every day, doing things like that. So Russia seems to be very good at least putting one layer between them and their cyber officers or whatever, and at the same time they can go, well, wasn't us. We don't know anything about that. We'll look into it. We're really sorry if someone in our country caused you problems, but it wasn't us. Time and time again, it seems to be the thing. Yep. So,
and there was a great article. Let me see if I can find a link to send you to. But that about the hack for the pipeline, which was done by an organization called DarkSide, and which is kind of a hacker organization that's weirdly corporate, but in their code, apparently one of the things that people have found is that in their code, if your computer is using a Cyrillic keyboard instead of a US keyboard or another keyboard, some of their attacks won't attack you if it sees you're using a Cyrillic keyboard, and or some different ones as well. I just sent you a link, and the discussion, at least in this and a couple other articles I read, is in Russia and some of these other countries, it's not so much that they are paying for or approving of these attacks, but very often the police and the authorities in Russia and some of these other countries won't go after the hackers if they're not bothering anyone in the country. If you're hacking, if you're a Russian hacking a Russian computer, you're going to get in trouble. But if you're a Russian hacking some computer, overseas, they don't care. It apparently is what the thought is, at least.
That is definitely also the case. And
I love the title of this article.
Try this one weird trick. Yeah, exactly.
Try this one weird trick Russian hackers hate. And so some security professionals are recommending to people to go into Windows Control Panel and add Cyrillic keyboard as one of your keyboards.
It does seem like a very a very strange workaround, and obviously if it can deter, if it can get you past one level of the hack to get you to something that you can actually fix.
And how many of those hacks actually check for that? Not zero, but not 100% either.
Right. It's definitely fun. And DarkSide, in fact, I have so much disdain for DarkSide because they're this group of people that, when they hacked the pipeline, they shut it down, and they sent out a press release. And again, a hacking group sending out a press release, they were like, oops, we meant to cause damage, but not that much damage. We're sorry. Next time we do this, we won't cause as much damage as we did this time. I have so little, like, if your living is based off of ruining other people's businesses and lives and, you know, that kind of thing, and just causing chaos, I have so little, you know, kind of faith that you are going to operate in good faith like they're trying to push forward. But man, that was something I'd never heard from a hacking group before, that they were, like you said, they were trying to be corporate. They really were.
Yeah, that's really what it feels like. I mean, it seems like a really organized criminal organization. Like, it's like the mob, right? Like, oh, you know, sorry, we didn't mean to.
We're thugs, but we have rules, right?
Right, exactly. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so I feel like we're definitely going to hear more about them, but they are very quickly, they have become high profile. So that's, I'm sure, what the group wanted in a roundabout way. So I'll go ahead and let you pick the next story. I have a couple more queued up here, but if you have one handy.
I want to hear, and you've probably talked to this already, but I want to hear your thoughts on the Amazon Sidewalk.
You know, hey, funny story. I actually have that story already queued up right here. This is from Houston, so, you know, more of a little you know, kind of local piece. But yeah, and let's see, hey Fort, and there we go. So yeah, Amazon plans to share internet with your neighbors. This is how you opt out. Articles like these get under my skin, and you're actually a great one to talk to about this, because I think you know, we talked about, Mike, if you want to outline real quick our conversation, if you recall, about Amazon Ring doorbell, like the police being able to access Ring doorbell video footage. We talked about that a couple of months ago, and just real quick, like I remember us saying that, you know, they don't just pull it and say, oh, we own that now. You know, your doorbell is our security camera. It's like, oh, police have a quick and convenient way to ask owners, will you share this with us? Right?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Yeah. So, and like things like
that's
that.
Fine with me.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm fine with it too.
It's an opt-in instead of an opt-out, right? That's the difference, is that if police want to get something for you, they can send a request, you can approve it, or you can sign up to go into this neighborhood, you know, group or whatever, but it's an opt-in event, not an opt-out event. And that's what kind of, I think, rubs me the wrong way a little bit with a Sidewalk, is that it's opt-out. So you are in it unless you say otherwise within a certain period of time.
So I'm actually kind of, and I've talked about opt-in, opt-out here on the show before, you know, and I'm sure that my numbers are completely made up because, you know, I probably made them up. But in my head, opt-in, opt-out is always like a 90-10 split either way. If you opt in, 90% of people will not opt in, but 10% of people will opt in. Now, if it's opt-out, 90% of people will not opt out, but 10% will. You know, whatever you make the default is going to be the vast majority of people and what they do.
Agreed.
So now making Sidewalk opt out, I feel like if they now, you know, with that in mind, the majority of people are going to be in this. If they did it the other way, Mike, and I can understand why you would advocate for the other way, but I feel like it wouldn't be that useful if only, you know, let's say 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 houses actually opted into this. You know, less so because a lot of these devices are, you know, very consumer general products. Like, not a lot of tech savvy people, or no, not even that. Tech savvy people can use this stuff. You know, I'm not saying that. A lot of not tech savvy people are using these products. So I feel like if you didn't opt in, they wouldn't bother. So
sure. Well, and if you didn't opt in, a lot of people wouldn't do it, not just because it takes an extra effort, but because it sounds scary. Like, you're going to share my internet connection with my neighbors? Do I want that? And I'm not sure I'm entirely buying into all of the benefits of it. I'm not sure. So, and I'm not sure, they're kind of still vague about it, is my feeling. Like, they say, you know, what is Sidewalk? It's a shared network that allows devices to work better, operated at no charge to customers. Thanks, guys. Sidewalk can help simplify setup of a new device, extend low bandwidth working range of devices like tile trackers, and help devices stay online even if they are outside the range of their home Wi-Fi.
So,
but
we recently brought in, against my better judgment, but with Craig's own judgment, we recently brought in 4 of those Apple tracker, those Apple tags, because
I have some Craig, sitting on my desk still in the wrapper.
Yeah, very good. And obviously Craig saw those and he's like, hey, I got to have that because he's all things Apple. And he immediately strapped one on the cat. He took some duct tape and got the cat and, had at it. The cat can now be found anywhere, mainly from the cries of duct tape, sticking to its skin, but also from the tracker. That tracker would be completely useless if it ran away, 25 feet away from the house until it came within Apple's little tracking network, either someone's phone or something like that. I feel like, Mike, that's where, that same philosophy is where Amazon's, going with this. Their own tile trackers, a number of other devices they know that they have the coverage. They know that they have millions of devices all over the country. And some of those devices can be made a lot better if they had even sporadic internet access, to certain points. So I can see why they're doing it. It's a huge benefit to Amazon. Is it a huge benefit to the people who, like they say, like you just kind of laughed at, no added cost to our users? It's kind of taking away a little bit from security, privacy, whatever, just a little bit from the people who went out and purchased and are, still paying for these services.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know the answer to this. On the Apple, with the new AirTags that they have, is that an opt-in process for the people who have iPhones, or is that an opt-out, or are you just stuck with it? I'm not an Apple person, so I don't know the answer to that.
The Apple
if you don't
one
have
is
AirPods, if you just have an iPhone that finds AirPods and reports back.
I'm pretty sure Apple is opt-in, I believe, and I just say that because Apple is lately trying to be very kind of privacy motivated, especially with their last 14.5 iOS update. But yeah, I believe that's an opt-in system. And they kind of pose it like if you'd like to help other people.
It seems like it should be, because Apple is known as this privacy thing, but and I think I might have said AirPods. I meant AirTags, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's opt-in.
It's not. It looks like it's an opt-out. It says, how do you opt out of Apple's Find My Network? And you go to Settings and Find My, and under Find My Phone, there's a Find My Network. Participating in the Find My Network lets you locate this iPad even if it's offline. You can also locate your AirTags and other compatible items. Well, but that specifically doesn't talk about locating other people's. I guess that also, I don't know. I'm not an Apple person. We should talk to someone who knows more about it.
There was a company that came on the show about a year or two ago, and unfortunately, my entire memory now is kind of pre and post pandemic. It's a very clear line. Pre-pandemic, they came on the show and they had a product similar to all to Tile and now the Apple Tag, and their biggest issue, because their whole job was to help protect pets. If your pet gets away from you, wherever it runs in the neighborhood, if it gets within 30, 40 feet, essentially a Bluetooth distance of a person's smartphone, it would immediately ping it back. And on your account, it would say that, hey, your dog's tag was just pinged at this location. Go get your dog or whatever. And they said that their biggest issue was finding people to opt in and operate on this network. Because it was a wonderful idea. It had a lot of benefits. But, the amount of people on the network made it, and if they're listening, I'm sorry, but, made it almost useless because even if they had 50,000 users in a country the size of America is just not enough to, really get it going. So I feel like there's so many benefits to this.
Like Apple, having someone like Apple or Amazon go in and do this and be like, guess what? All your devices now are scanning for these tags. I can definitely see the consumer benefit to it. And I think the security risk to it is low. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate a little bit here and say, do I want my devices doing that by default or not? I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way a little bit.
And then of course Fort in the chat saying things like, it'd be nice if I actually like my neighbors, and of course he's paying the internet bill, so why do other people get to benefit what I'm already paying for, especially if my service is not the best service, if there's already data caps and things like that,
especially if you don't use the benefits of that network that you're creating, right? If you don't have these tags, that you're not getting a benefit out of it, why are you paying for? Are you really paying anything more for your internet? Maybe if you have a bandwidth cap, maybe, but and even then they say they're limiting it at 500 megabytes, which is pretty small.
I'm also curious how actually strong would the network be, because we have our our router set up here, and just getting through a wall or kind of even out in the yard, out in the driveway, is really not that strong to begin with. And maybe some people have more powerful routers than we do, but I'm not even sure that I'm sure it would be just enough to kind of get the tile trackers working and stuff like that.
Doorbells will be the key, right? You got that thing on the outside of the house.
True. I guess people don't have to worry about
or there are camera systems. There are wireless cameras you put out there.
Yeah. I guess people don't have to worry about people camping out in your yard watching Netflix, mooching off of your network. That doesn't seem to be the point. You're not giving people data to kind of use at your expense, although you are doing exactly that, but it's like 500 megabytes. It's just that little bit of internet to make a couple of their other offerings work a little bit better. Obviously, that's going to work better in more populated areas. So, yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's a non-zero risk. Anytime you're opening up access to something, that it's an encrypted tunnel, it's all of that. They can't connect to your network supposedly, but I don't know what could possibly go wrong. Right? This stuff's all secure. Nothing could ever be hacked.
Absolutely. There's definitely no risk here. And then, of course, the age-old question of, what about my neighbor's kids' activity online, and, who does the FBI agent talk to? When it comes, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people's ISPs don't really act on the first or second, kind of file transfer, file sharing notification that they receive, but they'll act on like the 20th or the 25th that they receive, because they do provide a lot of leniency, but also they're not perfect. Mike, and that was actually a story that we did last week where a gentleman went on to, I think it was like the Pirate Bay, and he downloaded a version of Ubuntu just because he found that peer-to-peer, kind of file sharing was the quickest way to download it. And he got a service, or he got a notice from his carrier, I think it was Comcast, saying, "Hey, we noticed that you were pirating. Don't do that. Here's the negatives." And he's like, I wasn't pirating. It's Ubuntu.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard of cases of people who used what was it where they were I know what it was. There's been a couple weird cases, right, where you have some ISPs like Comcast who open up a public Wi-Fi access point on your Comcast modem. Mm-hmm. You rent the Comcast modem from them. In addition to your private access point, they put up a public one for any Comcast user to be able to use. And then it's the same kind of thing, right? They trace back on someone using it for nefarious reasons. And the story that came to mind, and we're about out of time though, is someone had that happen to them, but it was using their Comcast account out of New York. And it came to be that it was actually a previous roommate who had the username and password, who was logged into a Comcast hotspot in New York under their name anyhow. But it gets messy, right? This stuff isn't simple, I think, is kind of the point.
Yep, and actually, just scrolling down, reading the comments, which I should never do on a comment like this. They're actually talking about that same thing with, that Xfinity has been doing something similar for years, with this as well. Yeah. So there you go. And like, you're playing devil's advocate, but I'm actually on the side that a lot of networks nowadays have like the guest network that you can set up, which is actually very secure. That's kind of what I give everyone who comes to the house and they're like, "Hey, you mind if I use your Wi-Fi?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. The guest one. It's unprotected, no password. Go for it. Have a party." Like it's actually pretty easy to secure. The risk of actual security, risk is low. But yeah, it's Amazon asking a little bit more from customers who have already paid and continue to pay them. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And there is a difference there between the guest network and this, where I knew some people who were paranoid enough that they create a private network and an Internet of Things network and a guest network, so that things like the Amazon devices are segregated from their private network because they don't trust them. And I can understand why. But just, I mean, not so much that Amazon necessarily is going to abuse it, although they might, but just in terms of if that is hacked one day, I want that to be hacked over here by itself and not in the same place where my private stuff lives.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually a great idea. I wish I had thought of that, but no. My security cameras are connected to my home network, but that's okay. My home network is protected by a moat with alligators and guard dogs, and yeah, we're good. We're good there. So, Mike, you're right. We're about out of time. This hour flew on by. Yeah, we have like a minute left. Some of the other stories that I didn't get to, Firefox and I believe Chrome is now looking at things like this, but yeah, the private browsing and private browsing practices seem to be targeted because a lot of people think that when you go into privacy mode, incognito mode, whatever, they think that nothing they do matters, nothing's being tracked. No, right. I mean, even when you something like that, like even when you pop up like in private browsing, they tell you right here, what it does and what it doesn't do. And somehow people are still taking offense to this. I don't know why they do that, but still, yeah. So we have that story, everything from some things about Huawei Stack Overflow being sold to Prosus for $2 billion. So wow. Yeah, Stack Overflow has a new owner. Mike, we're out of time. So everyone, techguy.org. Everything you need to know about, everything you know and everything you don't know in one place with friendly, helpful people. And hey, we highly recommend it. Everyone, computeramerica.com. Mike, until next month, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.